Welcome back to the 360 Size Up podcast. Um, this is part two, and we're with RTFC, the Refinery Terminal Fire Company. This is another discussion with their leadership team. Today, we're going to talk about recruitment, training, and safety. We got another great panel of their leadership on our podcast today. Chief Swedish, if you don't mind, let's just go back and do some introductions. And when you do, just give what your title is and what you do there for the RTFC.
Paul Swedish, Fire Chief for RTFC, oversee all of operations in the Corpus Christi and the Port Arthur area.
I'm Jason Burnell. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief, and I oversee operations specifically in Corpus.
Riley Maxon, I'm Assistant Fire Chief, and I oversee our training academy.
My name is David Martinez. I control the safety department here at RTFC.
If you didn't have the opportunity for our listeners out there for the 360 Size Up podcast, I would encourage you to go back and listen to part one. Really good introduction of what RTFC does when it comes to the industrial firefighting world. And we're just going to jump straight in. And I want it because we got a lot of information to cover. This is part two, just like I said. We'll definitely go into 3, maybe 4. So the good thing is there's a lot of information. First topic I want to discuss today is recruitment and retention at RTFC. Who wants to jump into that and tell us how you do it and how do you retain your firefighters there?
Hey, Dan, I can take care of that, if that's okay, Chief.
Yep.
Okay, so basically for the recruitment process with our department, we constantly have a process in place. Like, we recruit year round. We never shut it down. But primarily where we get a lot of our recruitment from is either career fairs or school fairs. We do a lot of word of mouth because our firefighters promote our department outwardly. So you'll see a lot of that come in where applications come in. You'll see a firefighter's name attached to it because they recommended them. We have multiple online recruiting sites through our social media accounts. And then specifically with that, we recruit on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We have a TikTok channel. We have a YouTube channel. And then, of course, all of that's funneled through at rtfc.org. So if you wanted to apply for us and you found us on any one of those ways, you would just go to the website, fill out a digital application, and then that goes into our HR department. And then once the fire chief says, hey, we need to have another recruit school, and he gets with Brian, our CEO, then we start that process. And then if you'd like to know that process, I can tell you how that part works.
Why don't you share a little bit with that, Burnell, on the step 1, step 2, and step 3 of getting hired on with the organization?
Okay. Yep. So basically, once you apply for RTFC, you're going to get notified. Again, it's digitally nowadays. So you'll get notified via an email, a text, that there's going to be a physical agility tryout. We do that at our academy. And what that entails is basically a potential incumbent comes along. They have to run a 1.5 miles in 13 minutes, provided he or she can do that. They move on. They drag a 185-pound dummy 50 feet. We do a hose pull now of 50 feet of a 3-inch hose. And then we do a shoulder carry up 3 flights of stairs of a 3-inch double jacketed hose. Weighs somewhere between 50, 65 pounds, somewhere in that area. If you can do all of that and you pass all of that, then you'll go into, they do like an aptitude test. It's a 10-question aptitude test. And then you're done with the physical exam. If you make it through that process, then you get an interview with, generally it's myself, another chief, and HR. We're starting to incorporate our captains into that process just so they can get some experience. If you score high enough and make it to the next round, you do a second interview Again, that's generally with myself and another chief in HR. And after that, we rank our potential incumbents, and the list goes to the fire chief. He works through what he has to work through on the numbers for what our next academy will be, and then that information gets sent out to the potential incumbent. After that, then we do a whole other list of background. Can you, do you have a valid driver's license? Are you eligible to work in the United States? We do background checks and all that stuff. Can you get a TWIC card? If you get all through that, then we have a job offer, a contingent job offer. And then after that goes and you meet all those background qualifications, you get a hard offer of joining the recruit class, and that's our process.
Yes, sounds like a very small process. Yeah,
A little bit. We've been doing it for a while, so it's really not that difficult unless you're from the outside, looking in. But from internally, we've been doing this for a really long time. Not that we get it right every time, but we're pretty good. Our retention rate through everything that we do, or our attrition rate is around 15%. We retain about 85% every year, somewhere in that number. If I got that right, Chief, does that sound about right?
Yes.
So some of it has to do with going out to other facilities once we train them. And then some of it is that they're just not, this isn't for them, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. We'd like to find that out during our recruit school way sooner than we will once they get on shift.
Is the physical fitness part of it, Chief Burnell, does it have anything to do with the industrial side of things, or is it just the standard that you guys hold everybody up to?
It's our standard. It's not relevant to industry. So getting hired with RTFC, that physical exam, we've had that. It's changed over the years, but we've had that for a really long time. It is really difficult once you become a firefighter, because our physical agility test, once you get hired, is a lot more intense. It's a lot harder, but it really has nothing to do with what the refineries or industry expects out of us. We just expect that out of ourselves.
Thanks for explaining that. And so when it comes to getting people that fill out the applications that show up, do you have to have like workshops? You go out in the community, or does people want to join your group?
So we're I would tell you we are obscure with what industrial firefighting is. We talk to groups, we go to schools, we promote ourselves that way. But even from my experience, I didn't know what RTFC was, because it's a niche that is selective, right? So we promote the best we can, and particularly with all social medias now. But once you get into it and learn about it, then you understand what exactly it is to be an industrial firefighter. So, like our qualifications, you have to have a GED or a high school diploma. You need to be 18 years of age. You have to have a valid driver's license, and you have to be able to work in the United States. That's the only qualifications that we require for you to apply for RTFC. And then once that happens, whether we go to local fire departments or high schools, or we like military. If you're a former military, we really like that. But all that is how we try to attract people to come in, and then once they get in and learn about industrial firefighting, that takes a whole different avenue.
So you talked about the military, Burnell. How many people do you have? Do you know the number of exactly what we have within our organization currently?
Yes, sir. We have 18 veterans and 2 active. One of our active, he's actually down towards El Paso right now. He's been there for over a year. He graduated recruit school and as soon as he graduated, he actually got his papers to
Deployment.
go active duty, and he will currently be there until November of 2024. So he's been a firefighter for RTFC by that time for a couple of years, but he actually hasn't. He's going to have to go through the academy again just to learn how to be an industrial firefighter.
Actually, I'm going to go visit him here within the next couple of weeks and take a care package down to him and his group.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I work with HR
So
on that.
he's been down there for a while.
Yes.
And then we have another active duty firefighter, and he got his papers. I believe he gets shipped out late December.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then so we promote it, we honor it. We're thankful that we have veterans that are industrial firefighters, and internally we recognize that within our group. We have a Veterans Day meal, a celebration, so that we can recognize those that have served and those that are currently serving.
Yeah, that's awesome that you do that. Especially, well, anytime for me, anytime you go into an organization, you know really quick if this is is this legit, or is this what's the culture like? So just what you described, Chief Burnell, coming out of the gate, I'd say anybody that comes in and makes it through the application process and then walks up to the agility test, really, it's an eye opener. Hey, this is a real career. This isn't make believe.
Yes, sir. We're proud of who we are, but we are not easy. We're not supposed to be, and we don't take that lightly. Anybody that wears a black uniform is honored to wear it, because we have 130. Well, after this class graduates, we'll have about 130 firefighters that do it. That's it worldwide. It's not that we're better than anybody, because we're not. We're honored to wear our black uniform. So if you can make it through that process and not take lightly, because we won't allow it, but what the black uniform means from the time that you get here, like we address our new incumbents, that they're addressed before they're ever an employee of ours. Like when they come to the academy and sit down to get their badge number to run the mile and a half, they know right then and there it's not a joke. So if they come in thinking that this is just another thing, they won't make it. So,
what's graduation look like?
Well, a lot of it depends on the size of our class, and then the location we can have it. But basically, the day that a recruit graduates, we recognize them in some either a luncheon or a dinner, depending on size. They get their black uniform, because they don't get a black uniform until the day they graduate. They will get all their brass. Their loved one will pin them, which is a pretty damn cool moment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
it is pretty cool. And then each firefighter at that time will become a trainee. They're no longer a recruit, so they get ranked up the day they graduate. And then each one gets recognized individually, so they can have their moment of their graduation. We allow up to, Chief Maxon can help me with this, we allow up to 5 family members or 5 people per recruit. So for this one, with the number we have, plus the chief officers and the CEO that attend, this will be somewhere around 85 to 100 people, Chief, something of that nature.
Yes, sir.
So it takes a small village to make graduation work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome that you do that, but it sounds like it's once you get to that point, it's well deserved.
Yes, sir. And with that, Fire Chief incorporated something a number of years back. We also recognize anybody that has been promoted at that time, even though the graduation is for the recruits. We also do recognition of promotions in rank from the last time that had occurred. So that's actually a good moment for, my wife or whoever would have got promoted during that time, so they can see what RTFC does for the current employees, not just the ones coming in.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. When my visit last month at your location, I had the opportunity of meeting some firefighters and some of your spouses, and you could just feel the connection that the other spouses have, and it was obvious that everybody knew everybody,
It,
and
it's
everybody hangs
truly,
out with everybody.
it's truly a family affair with our department. It's been promoted that way for my last 26 years. And I know before me it was because it's the culture of us. And the reason that is, Dan, is so Chief Swedish expects us to be there, to be at RTFC uh, all the time to take care of our department. But that also means we're away from our families. So what we do in return through the fire chief's promotion of family is that they're invited to everything. Anything that we do outside of the four walls or outside of the firehouses is the families are invited to any and everything that we do, from the children to the spouses, and hell, even at that matter, they're invited to the firehouses on like holidays and stuff of that day. Like we promote that. It's a family affair for us.
And like I said, I could feel the family, that feeling. So it's that's great that you incorporate that in the culture there at RTFC. So, and thanks for just getting into the recruitment right there. Once they get to the past you, Chief Burnell, I know that training falls into a big part of the rest of their career there at RTFC. Who wants to? I want to go into training and, in particularly, talk about once we get through with recruitment, where does that person go in regards to training?
They come to the training academy, where every single person in a black uniform has gone through an RTFC recruit school. So even if you've already been trained elsewhere or you're a firefighter somewhere else and you decided you want to go industrial, you still go through our recruit program. So our recruit school is 14 weeks long, and it takes 528 hours of instruction. And that's the actual instruction. That doesn't count for, the days they're doing PT and they're sitting out there doing their mile-and-a-half runs and all their flutter kicks and jumping jacks. And that's what we call sticks. If you mess up in recruit school, the whole group gets punished for one guy not completing a task correctly, kind of deal. It's a very military environment. So that's where they'll walk into on day one. They come in wearing their civvies. They don't have uniforms yet, so they're still all dressed up in their normal street clothes. And we let them know right away that it's in a military environment. And they've already been exposed to that, like Chief Brunel said, in the hiring process. So they should know what to expect. However, some still get a little shock and awe. We do utilize our veterans to assist us in the recruit school. So it is an actual military environment. And we try to take away their individualism and replace them with a team perspective, right? Because they're no longer John or Joe, they're firefighter, and that's what they're going to be as a firefighter. So that's what we do. We take that away from them and make them act as a whole, act as a group, and then so they're looking at like the 14 weeks of recruit school, and then they finish off with 6 weeks of EMT school. So we actually push them through all of our training. They're going to go over disciplines like interior and exterior marine firefighting, LNG firefighting, hazmat. They all become hazmat technicians. They all go through high angle and confined space rescue. They all do trench rescue. They also go over basic water rescue and recovery. And then we go over basic pumps and hydraulics theory for our recruits. They're not full on engineers or anything by that matter, but they have an understanding of how hydraulics work. And then we also obviously cover ICS. There's a lot of other things that get pushed into there just to become a good, well-rounded recruit. But those are the basic disciplines that they have to go over during the recruit class. One of the things that we require all of our recruits, like I said, they come in wearing regular civilian clothing. We give them a uniform, but it's not a black uniform. They have to earn that. They have to earn everything in recruit school. So they get given a hard hat. Every firefighter, everybody inside the refinery wears a hard hat. Everybody has a name tag on it, but a recruit. You get a piece of duct tape, and you get to write your name on your duct tape. You have to earn your actual label for your name. You have to earn your badge. You have to earn your collar pins. Everything is earned. In fact, we actually make them wear a rope short around them the entire time until they can test out of their knots. They have to earn that right to no longer carry that leash. So that's one of those things that they show pride, and once they've passed that, once they've actually been able to tie all those knots, that's a big deal for them. So we have 10 rescue knots they have to tie. Each one has to be done in under 20 seconds. If they can't do it, they have to keep wearing that rope. And that goes for all kinds of things that they do, any skill, right? And especially when you put firefighters together, they're going to make anything competitive. They can make eating cake competitive. But, so it works out really good that way for the recruits.
So it sounds like it's real strategic. It's not just
Yes.
you're doing ropes, knots, things like that. You're teaching teamwork. And you use the word pride.
Yes.
So you're creating you're building an industrial firefighter is basically what you're doing mentally and physically.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's not any firefighter knows it's not for everybody. And you want to make sure that, the guy next to you or girl next to you has your back. And, they want to make sure that you do the same for them. And that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that each person has that mentality to take care of their brother or sister.
You mentioned certification. You talked about EMT school. Is there any certain NFPA standards that the recruit class, do they come in with 1001, NFPA 1081? Are you focusing on certain standards?
So we actually have a lot of standards. There's a very lengthy list, but yes, they do go over the 1001. We follow NFPA 600 and NFPA 1081 for the fire brigades, if you will, for the exterior firefighting portion. So there's a lot of that in there as well. But again, we're also Marine firefighters, so we go over the 1405, the 1005. There's just a lot. You get into rescue, you go into hazmat. So we follow all the NFPA standards for that. But our guys also go through a lengthy process to get their TCFP, the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, right? So they go through the school for that with us in our recruit school. And then when they get out, they can challenge the test. We don't challenge the test while they're in. They have to go through the whole rigmarole of signing up for skills and having a proctor and all that. So that happens after recruit school, but they're capable of challenging that test and getting those qualifications. We require them to actually get those qualifications within 1 year of being on shift.
So you said, so this takes 14 weeks. It's a 14-week process. I would imagine the work up front has got to be weeks of your time too. How many people does it take to pull 14 weeks off to get this done?
So we put one captain in charge of recruit school. He's obviously supported by the rest of the individuals at the training academy. So I have a full 3-person staff.
I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
What was that?
That's cheaper now as captain, yeah.
Yes. So so we have a full training academy staff. There's 3 of us out here. We bring in one additional captain off shift to manage the recruit class to maintain that continuity. He does come about a week or 2 before the recruits even start. There's a lot of things that have to happen. Just so they have to do their EMT after recruit class. Before we even start recruit class, we're already looking into who needs to get their Hep B shots, just so that they can be far enough along in their series when recruit class or when the EMT class rolls around. They're ready for that. We don't have anybody hanging up on that. And then just the organization to get into the refinery complexes, you have to have a lot of safety training from local. I don't know what you call the Coastal Bend Safety Council, but it's like a small place where you go and sit in front of a computer and they drill CVTs into your head. And we have to do that on a yearly basis, but the initial is a full day there. And on top of that, we also have to make sure they get their TWICs, which means we go to a federal office to get a TWIC license done. And then that's just to get into the refineries as well. So there's a lot of credentials we have to have, and that takes a lot of stuff to get people through. And it sounds simple until you have a recruit that just got married or a recruit that just got adopted and their name changes and, there's stuff that doesn't line up. So we have to work through all of that just to make sure these guys are, compliant to get into the
talking about our recruit school and told them what the process was. Our training doesn't stop there. What we require everybody to do once they are hired on, I want you to cover a little bit of that, Max.
Sure. So we do what we call quarterlies. Our extended facilities. So Sabine Pass is a little bit further than the Corpus Christi area, and they'll do a semi-annual. But what happens there is that's 40 hours a year of off-shift training. So we pay overtime for our guys for 40 hours a year to do that. Then they receive an additional 72 hours of mandatory training on shift every year that they have to complete as well. And then outside of those two, we do an additional 16 hours of professional development. So there's several classes that RTFC puts on and hosts, and we require our individuals to attend at least one of those classes a year. And that comes out to 128 hours of training a year to maintain proficiency, not just check the box, but actually maintain a proficient response on a firefighter.
As you're talking, what's posted up on that our people that's catching this on YouTube is some pictures that show your training ground, which is pretty impressive. It looks like most of everything with you guys is in-house, that you can do all of your training that you just talked about. You can do at your training ground or in a classroom setting.
Yes, sir.
That's
So
we're pretty much self-sufficient in that aspect of it. We take care of all the training ourselves, like Max was saying, whether it be the 16 hours additional or the 48 hours of quarterly training, so forth. We do it all ourselves. If somebody would like to take a class outside of RTFC, that can be approved also, whether it's through TEACS or some other training, that can be approved also as part of their 128 hours for the year. So we do allow outside training. We encourage that so that way we can continue to develop in our own programs. Max did for LNG. When we first got into LNG, he went up to TEACS and took the LNG class up there and brought it back to us.
Something else that really stands out for us, I think, is all of our instructors are RTFC firefighters. So if you're on shift today, or am I taking over, Max? Sorry.
No.
You're good.
So if I'm on shift today, when I get off in the morning, and Chief Maxson has a class out here, I just leave shift, and if I want to instruct that day, and I've been signed off on being an instructor, I come out here and teach the exact same thing that I was doing the day before, regardless of the discipline. Not that every firefighter is an instructor, but every firefighter at RTFC has the opportunity to be an instructor out at the training academy. So we don't do a lot of adjunct stuff. We don't do a lot of third party come on in. We're teaching the thing that we're literally doing on a daily basis.
And I'm sure Chief Maxson, you probably appreciate that too.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We love having our instructors to be able to come out and help us out when we have classes. And our instructors are made up of the guys from shift, and we find those guys that absolutely fell in love with rescue or fell in love with hazmat, and those are our instructors. You know, the guy that just like went through recruit school and was like, man, I'm going to get my own rescue gear and start doing this on my own, you know? So that's the guy, you know, that just fell in love with it, that he has a passion for it and a desire for it. So those are the people that we employ for our instructors.
So I want to talk a little bit about your training ground, the props that you have. And when we think, I mean, I know the answer to this, but if you go to your state fire academy, you're not going to see the props that you've got at your training ground. There is a difference between municipal firefighting and industrial firefighting. And this is anybody answer this. I'm just curious of what your perspective on industrial firefighting, the difference between, because we got a lot of listeners on the 360 Size Up podcast that are municipal firefighters. I know there's a big difference. The hazards are different. Our tactics, our strategies are different. And I know you train to those. Could you just tell us a little bit, in your opinion, what the difference would be being an industrial firefighter and how we train to it?
Sure. So we also train our guys to be interior, right, for structural firefighting as well. And so I have dabbled in that. I was also a volunteer firefighter for a little while as well before I moved locations. And I would say the biggest difference is going to be the heat. Interior firefighting, man, you guys are hot all the time. Like when you go inside of a structure that has a fire inside there, you're just inside of an oven, right? For exterior firefighting, we have water flowing on us constantly, right? That's our protection because we are going up against pressure fires. There's lots of hydrocarbon liquid fires. We utilize massive amounts of water instead of minimal amounts of water, right? So structural firefighting, you're looking to conserve that property in there by not just putting way too much water on it. You're looking to help that person. That's their home or somebody's property. We're helping property by copious amounts of water, and we utilize essentially the foam that everybody is becoming quickly familiar with for firefighting in the industrial environment. The equipment is much larger. For instance, we've AAA'd a 5-inch. For most people, that's unheard of. Why would you ever AAA a 5-inch? Well, that's because the fold on a AAA for a 5-inch, 100-foot section lines up perfectly to be the wraparound to do a street lay on a crossfire. Crossfire flows 1,250 gallons a minute, and doing a AAA, you can have a guy walk out with that hose in one hand, holding the bite of the AAA, and you can have a crossfire in the other hand, and you can set it down, and that guy's got a street lay set up really darn quick. Most people, when they think of a AAA, they think of, an 1.75 inches, an 1.5 inches. So that's a different perspective. Our 5-inch is not used for supply; it's actually an attack line. So I would say is the biggest difference between municipal and
Talk
industrial.
a little bit, Max, about the products that we burn out there. Also, not just Excelsior and for structure, but and then being able to apply foam out there with our wastewater.
Yes, sir. So actually, I was going to talk a little bit about the Training Academy. We've been here since 1994, and we've got 17 acres here, and we've got a 4-story burn building we burn Excelsior in. But then we have 13 different fire props out in the field. And we also have, it looks like a small refinery complex or small unit from a refinery. We burn propane, liquefied propane. We don't gasify it before it comes out of the end of the pipe. So the fire is pretty loud, very warm. We run it at whatever pressure the ambient temperature gives us from the tank, essentially. So we're usually around 100 to 125 PSI with a 1-inch line on all of our props. So the fire is very real for those that are looking for that kind of experience. We also have a truck loading rack that mimics, where 18-wheelers pull up to get their fuel to bring it out to all the different gas stations. So we mimic liquid fires there with 3-dimensional fire capability. We also have confined space rescue props as well that we utilize for different high angle and confined space. We've just put in a 30-foot tank prop, so we're going to be burning kerosene in there. I'm sorry, I guess I didn't mention that all of our liquid is kerosene currently on the field, with opportunity to do some experimental liquids here and there should a client request it. We also have an LNG pit we utilize we'll bring in an 18-wheeler with LNG and fill it up, and we'll put out some LNG fires. We have several different fire extinguisher props, not just for your normal fire extinguishers that most people think of, but wheel units, the larger dry chem units that you find in the industrial setting. And then we have a few different 3-dimensional props, which are a different animal altogether, and that's where you really get into that hydrochem capability. So we have the ability to practice hydrochem on our field. And then we also, like I said, we train in hazmat, so of course we have all the different leak trees and chlorine kits and rail car kits and things like that we'll utilize. Our field has 10,000 gallons a minute of water flow capacity. So that's usually enough.
You should be, yes.
Do some water.
Yeah, it should be. If it's not, we're not doing it right. And so we also, to catch all that water, we have our own wastewater treatment plant on site. And that's what allows us to flow foam and have those liquid fires. That sets us apart from a few other training grounds because it is difficult for most training grounds to get those kinds of things installed, to have that infrastructure, the permitting and things like that. For inside our actual facility, we have 4 classrooms that we utilize, and we can host groups up to 60 at a time. We've gone higher than that, and it took some logistics, but not all 60 were in the same class. We've had clients that have brought in about 90 people before, and we split it up, and somebody's doing pumps and hydraulics, other people are doing tank firefighting and ICS, and then the rest of the group is doing exterior firefighting with some interior. So we're able to move groups around like that at our facility to really get an entire company trained the way they wanted to be trained. And with that said, we originally were designed to train RTFC and our emergency response team members. So the local refineries or industry that is a member, they would send their ERT to us for training. So that was what our original game plan or business strategy, if you will, was. But we found that there was a lot of non-members that wanted training as well. And we don't really advertise. We have a website, but for the most part, word of mouth is how we travel. And this year, we have 220 different classes so far this year, and we've trained quite a few non-members. We have clients from all over the world. We go to Canada. We'll also come to you for training if that's your pleasure. We have a guy going to Nebraska this weekend, and we've already gone to Canada twice this year, and we've had Chileans come up once.
So with that, I'd like to talk about the flooring free. That is the only foam that we use out of our training academy. Even though we do have wastewater and we treat it and all that good stuff, we do have flooring free foam. Another thing different about our training academy, Max, I think that you may have forgotten, was that we customize our classes. So whether we have a group coming in and only want to do certain things, it's just not a cookie cutter class that you have to go through and going to cover things that you may not want to cover or already have that experience. We customize our classes. They work with the instructors out there. They'll put a lesson plan together and then let the client approve that, and then that'll be the class. So it's not a cookie cutter class either.
Yeah. So with that, to keep people in compliance, everybody remembers NFPA, especially coming from the municipal side over to the industrial side. Everything is governed by the NFPA. But once you get into the industrial side, there's another acronym called OSHA that comes into play. And that is law versus standard. And we make sure the classes that people ask for are still compliant with both OSHA and NFPA. That way they're not breaking that compliance.
And I think that's a big another, when we talk about industrial firefighting, that definitely adds a whole new twist to things in regards to training and what obeying the law as you spoke. So I want to go into talk a little bit about safety. Everything that we've talked about right now, we know it's a dangerous job. Even coming into training, that's your anything that we do in this field is has a safety component to it. It is dangerous. And I want to talk about how is safety, how do you incorporate safety, that culture, making sure everybody goes home and even retires from RTFCs?
Yes, Dan, thank you for asking that question. I get that a lot. What's the safety culture here, right? So, yes, at times it can be difficult, right? But there's two main words that it always comes up in my mind, describing RTFC. We're personal, right? Safety's personal to us. We're like words like we were talking about. We got people that go to the refinery, do other things. We have friends that we train for many years in the ERT team. So we take that personal. But within the company, when we have these recruits, we teach them what to look for, what to expect. We give them the knowledge. We try to stay consistent. And at times, sometimes we have to go out and open up a book or take a class and make sure we're current. And we provide that, and we provide that in a consistent way. Personal to me is a big word. Everyone wants to go home at the end, right? And when something happens, all of us, all the chiefs here, it touches us personally, because we want everybody to go home, and that's why we do the things we do, right? The other word that comes about is trust. Dan, if I ask you to put a set of bunker gear and follow me to the fire, would you do that, Dan? Would you go with me?
I would have to develop that trust. Yes.
That's right. So, hopefully you said no, right? I mean, but if you're a risk taker like I am, or we are, or a firefighter is a risk taker, but we train. And the more I train you, you start to believe or have the same value I have. And it comes in slowly. That's why the vigorous training that we have, these guys go through some good training to a point where we build a trust together. And as long as we build trust within the company, then they'll do just about anything you want them to do, as long as they do it safely. And being out in the field on their own at the refinery, we have to have trust. I have to be able to know that these guys know what to do in a danger moment, especially standbys, rescues, at a fire standby or whatever the case. They need to be ready, and they need to know certain things.
We
So,
talked.
all of us, like you were saying earlier about Burnell, saying something about, we're all instructors at times, in our career. Internally, the fire chief right there, he was a tough instructor. Back in '96 when I started, he was my instructor. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have this passion. And I tried to share that. We tried to share that to our recruits and our family here at RTFC. And because of that, we have common values and beliefs, right? So it starts from the top and it goes all the way to the bottom. And as long as everybody is at the right mind and at the same time, we're all safe.
We brought the word up family on this podcast quite a few times, and I think that's having that culture when it comes to pretty much everything we've talked about, uh, especially safety. If it's family and you're the leadership and that's your culture, you sincerely want everybody to be safe. If you're going to give that person an assignment, you want to make sure that you've taught that person, they understand the safety side of it, and it's in the trust, as you said, Chief. And you also brought up another thing. You talk about your values. I know when I was on your site, you have your values posted up in your conference room, and they're not just on a sheet of paper. They're on a big glass hanging on the wall, and you could feel that trust. I felt safe, and after I left there, I felt part of a family. So I think you've got it uh, pretty well surrounded when it comes to your culture. So one other question too, when it comes to your safety record, what's your safety record, Chief?
Well, when you start talking about OSHA and their standards, and we look at what it means to OSHA. The lower incident rate. It's actually a way to that you have a safety performance, a better safety performance. We look at the total recordable incident rate, which is TRIR, and right now we have zero. We have zero because all the special people we have here at RTFC, the special training that we have, the commitment that we have zero. Um, on the just in the average industry, OSHA says, 1.0. That's the average, and we're at zero, and that's a big thing. Yes, we're typical. We're like a regular company. We do have risk. We do still have hazards. We still worry about those people jumping on the fire truck and trying to respond and making good decisions. And we have some incidences, minor incidences. But we take it serious. Anything small can work up to a big one. So we try to implement safety and teach and talk, and every month or every quarter we go back and we do lectures about safety and the commitment, and we talk about incidents in the past and we bring them up because we have a lot of new people, right? So we have to teach them of what went wrong in the past, and this is why we do things what we do right now, and this is why we do it, and we try to implement that.
I think that's, you're going back to sharing that, we went 17 years, Dan, without a lost time. And I had to make that phone call to the wife when we lost it. That's the years doesn't matter, but that phone call, making that phone call to the wife saying that her husband got hurt. Don't want to do that. That's not part of our organization. That's not part of our culture. And if you don't buy into our culture, then you don't work for RTFC. That's the bottom line. We've had to let people go. I've had to let people go because of their actions or lack of. So take it personal, just like Martina said. We take it personal. Somebody gets hurt, we take it personal. I make that phone call. We follow through with it. It's a tough time, but we got to stick together, the good times and the bad times.
Chief, we also and we're known for this, but we report everything. We report all of our incidents. So you'll get a lot of stuff where it may not be a big deal to other companies, other contractors or whatever, but to RTFC, it's those little, they are big deals to us. So one, we don't hide it, but two, it's a way for us to learn so that a big incident or accident doesn't occur. So we don't keep anything. Fire chief and Chief Martinez, they report stuff out to who the fire chief answers to, and we don't hide it. So, and we're not afraid to admit the things that we do that we need to improve on. And so there's a constant reminder for everybody at RTFC of an occurrence that happened, and then they'll follow through to make sure that that doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah, it's mandated that you buy into our program. I mean, if not, then you just don't work here. I'm not going to make that horrible phone call. I do not want to do that. So we take it personal, and we do everything we can. I get the support from Brian, the CEO, to the board of directors, in buying the best equipment, training the best we can for the situation we're going to be put in. So I really appreciate that from the board, because those 128 hours that Chief Maxon was talking about a little while ago, that's not cheap. Training's not cheap. We pay all our people to go through all the training. Max didn't mention that. We pay our guys to go through recruit school. We pay our guys once they get out of recruit school. Anytime they're training for RTFC, we're paying them. So that 128 hours is paid. Their training's paid for, and their time is paid for. So, to do that, a lot of organizations will train you one time, and now you're a rescue guy, or you're, a hazmat guy. We don't believe in that, and the board actually financially supports that.
Yeah, you're definitely not a group that just checks the box. I think you go above and beyond, and your safety record definitely that doesn't just happen. That is your culture. Yeah.
And like Chief Brunel said, every little thing we report out, whether it's a ding in my door, we're reporting it out. And how can we fix that? How can we change that? That's what we're looking at, and that's what Martinez does on a daily basis. And he talked about blast from the past. Go out and share that. For some of us guys that have been around for a few years, have seen different things, we share that with him, and then he goes out there and shares that with the individuals that may have only been here. Most of them weren't even born when some of those accidents took place.
Wow.
So,
hey, as we wrap up our podcast here, we're getting close to our time. I want to thank you for paying it forward. I think that's what this podcast is really set up to add value to our listeners, and the information that you're providing, not just the industrial world, but the emergency response world, is greatly appreciated. It's the stuff you're giving us is stuff that we can give application to and put it in process. One other thing I want to plug is if you want to know more about RTFC, you got your book they just put out, 75 years, been in existence. It's a great book. What do the proceeds go toward, Chief Swedish?
They go to firefighters' families.
Great book. I'd encourage you. Where can they find this book at?
I believe it's on Amazon, correct, Max? Yeah.
All right. Hey, again, I appreciate this. If you didn't have the opportunity to listen to part one, I'd highly encourage you to go back to the 360 Size Up podcast, listen to that. This is part two. We'll do part three coming up here in a couple of weeks. And again, I appreciate our whole panel. I had fun, and I learned something today. So thank you, folks.
Well, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.